everyone to this, hang on, which meeting are we at? Our 23rd meeting of the Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development. For the first hour, we have with us some representatives of Parks Canada Agency, Mr. Andrew Campbell, Ms. Catherine Blanchard, Ms. Christine Loth-Baun, Mr. Michael Nadler, and Ms. Darlene Upton. And for the first 60 minutes, then, we will be studying the subject matter of Supplementary Estimates A 2022-23. And I believe, Mr. Nadler, that you have some opening remarks to share with us. An opening statement. You have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be with you here this evening. As you know, I am Michael Nadler. I'm the Vice President of External Relations and Visitor Experience at the Parks Canada Agency. I'm pleased to join you tonight, and we have with us 4 members of our management team around the table: Catherine Blanchard, Vice President of Finance and Chief Financial Officer of the Parks Canada Agency. First and foremost, on video conference, you will see Andrew Campbell, Senior Vice President, Operations, Christine Loth-Baun, Vice President, Indigenous Affairs and Cultural Heritage, and Darlene Upton, Vice President, Protected Areas Establishment and Conservation. Once again, we'd like to thank you for having invited us to join you here this evening to discuss the Supplementary Estimates A for the Parks Canada Agency.
Discussing the supplementary estimates to recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. June is Indigenous History Month, and this hearing offers an opportunity to briefly share with the committee Parks Canada's abiding commitment to work in partnership with Indigenous peoples. Our agency is dedicated to working with Indigenous partners to foster a system of national heritage places that recognizes and honors the contributions of Indigenous peoples, both past and present. Parks Canada works closely and collaboratively with hundreds of Indigenous communities across the country in the management of national parks, historic sites, and marine conservation areas. This work includes sharing the stories, the traditions, and the rich histories and cultures of Indigenous peoples with Canadians and with visitors from around the world. It also includes acknowledging the deep relationships that Indigenous peoples have with ancestral lands, waters, and dais across Canada, and working to restore these connections in the spirit of reconciliation. Turning to the 22-23 Supplementary Estimates A, in these estimates, Parks Canada is seeking to increase its reference levels by $33.6 million, which will bring the agency's total authorities for 22-23 to over $1 billion. The $33.6 million is composed of $20.7 million in Vote 1 operating expenditures, grants and contributions, $6.1 million in Vote 5 capital, and $6.8 million in statutory expenditures. The largest item in these supplementary estimates, colleagues, is $25.5 million to maintain the agency's capacity to manage our capital assets. Parcs
Canada is the administrator of one of the largest asset portfolios in the federal government. The agency is responsible for more than 18,500 built assets across the country, with a portfolio that includes heritage buildings, visitor facilities, trails, highways, historic waterways, and even dams and bridges with or adjacent to major metropolitan centres. Between 2015 and 2023, the Government of Canada provided approximately $4.2 billion to address the deterioration of thousands of built assets managed by Parks Canada. This funding has allowed Parks Canada to improve the condition of over 5,000 assets in national parks and national historic sites.
Restored aging visitor infrastructure, such as the investment of $80 million to renew campgrounds at Waterton Lakes, Jasper, and Kejimkujik National Parks. Other projects have supported the restoration and improvement of heritage buildings and experiences, such as the $5.6 million spent for a major restoration of the heritage buildings at Manoir Papineau, and the $5 million spent on a signature interpretive exhibit at the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site. D'autres encore nous en
Still others have resulted in strengthened dams and waterways infrastructure, as well as improvements to roads and highways, facilitating transportation through national heritage places and strengthening the Trans-Canada Highway system.
$25 million investment provided by Budget 2021 is an interim measure while Parks Canada completes its work on long-term asset investment, maintenance, and management strategies. Parks Canada's long-term capital investment plan will address its current and future asset requirements and ensure the effective and efficient management and ongoing sustainability of the agency's asset portfolio into the future. Il est à noter que Parcs Canada.
Of note, Parks Canada is also seeking $1 million for the Learn to Camp program. Since 2011, the celebrated Learn to Camp program has helped people who dream of going on a camping adventure or experiencing the outdoors to take the first step by learning the practical skills needed to safely enjoy activities in the outdoors. Research suggests that many Canadians face barriers to visiting or camping in Canada's outdoors, including a lack of awareness of opportunities, as well as a lack of access, equipment, and knowledge. The Learn to Camp program aims to break down these barriers and encourage more people to connect with nature. So if we might stop at this point discussing camping, we will go to the first round of questions because we have reached about 5 minutes now. Mr. Dreeshen, the floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Mr. Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for being here. And from someone from Alberta, I always enjoy the wonderful parks that we have. And I just know last year as Waterton, Banff, and Jasper spent some time, but ended up buying a couple of passes. But that's because they took two different vehicles at times. But nevertheless, it's a great experience, and it's something that we should be so proud of. And I know especially people in your department are. What I do want to ask, though, let's directly go into the estimates. And one of the things I want to mention is, in your remarks, Mr. Nadler, you mentioned the Parks Canada total authorities for 22-23 will be over $1 billion. You further suggested that Canadians face barriers to visiting and camping in our outdoors, which, of course, there's a lot of different reasons for that. My colleague, Mr. Mazur, submitted an order paper question where he asked for the breakdown of money spent by each park towards promotion in 2022. One of the areas that you're saying that this extra money will go towards is promoting awareness for things like the Learn to Camp program. Now, your department signed off on this order paper saying that they don't track metrics like that. We hear about the number of visitors or the projections of spending on the program or that program. But my question is this: if your department tells Parliament that they don't track how much money each park spends on promotion, how are we to know that this extra funding is going to be used to adequately promote awareness for programs such as the Learn to Camp program?
Oh, no, it's an excellent question, and thanks for. In fact, I recall directly that parliamentary question, so I'm grateful for the query. In fact, much of our promotional work and advertising is managed centrally and is not delivered necessarily park by park or historic site by historic site across the country. And so for 2022, in fact, we resumed advertising. In fact, many of you are probably aware there was a pause in much of the federal advertising during the pandemic period. We were able to resume an advertising campaign that began in February and actually concludes this month, toward the end of the month. Those investments in advertising are $4 million over 2 fiscal years, so $1 million in the last fiscal year and $3 million in the current fiscal year, and that's both for placements and for some content development.
I'd just like to ask another question again, because in the metrics, as you're trying to think about how many people are going to come to, come there to the parks and enjoy them, many people, especially in our area, I mean, it's a 3-4 hour drive to get to parks from where I live, and of course, if you're taking a motorhome or something of that nature, what used to cost you, $250, $300 to fill up your tank is now over $1,000. These are the types of things that are going to restrict people. I mean, if you happen to live close, maybe you're going to deal with this, but if you're having problems, with budgets, as people are, has anyone looked at that metric to see what we can anticipate in this time of extra special costs that people are facing?
For our projections for visitation this year, it's going to be an interesting year for Parks Canada. And if of any help, we can advise that the year's starting pretty well. The tourism industry broadly across Canada is experiencing below 2019 levels, but certainly above last year's expenditures by tourists in Canada. And so the cost of travel, cost of inflation, also certain uncertainties just on the return of international travel to Canada all present some challenges for us in predicting what will happen over the summer months this year. But you're absolutely right. Much of our visitation comes from a 2 to 4 hour catchment area near a destination, and that was certainly the story of last year. And so far, we're seeing a pretty strong domestic local visitation for our places. Now it's spring, so it's still early in the season, but the signals are fairly positive for visitation.
The other thing I'd just like to ask about, because I've read it here and I understand what you're dealing with as far as the Learn to Camp program is concerned. I wonder if in just a little short time you could explain to us. I grew up camping, so I don't think I need a primer on that. But maybe if you could just kind of mention to the people that are listening just what that program really does entail.
Hey, and it's one of our favorite initiatives at Parks Canada. We take a lot of joy in introducing people to nature and to the experience of cultural and natural heritage places. And so Parks Canada actually offers the Learn to Camp program offers a fairly broad range of activities. There are roughly 40 overnight events conducted every year. In fact, this year we'll be going back to largely in-person delivery. And then also we offer experiences of varied duration, so from a couple of hours to a half a day to a full day. We're delivering the program in 6 out of 6 hubs across the country, so in basically every region of the country. And we deliver, in fact, now more in communities. We bring parks to people with that program than we do actually bringing people to our places. So
who are the target audiences that you have identified?
It's a mix of audiences for...
Quickly, we have 10 seconds. I'm sorry.
Okay,
2 seconds?
Si vous pourriez...
10 seconds? Well, if you could just name 3 factors.
Families, also new Canadians, people who may be new to Canada and haven't experienced our national parks and historic sites. We also target low-income families, low-income Canadians, and Canadians who might face accessibility challenges.
Merci.
Thank you. I made a mistake earlier. I forgot to recognize and welcome our colleague Gérard Deltel, who is replacing Mr. Mazier among us here this evening. Now on to Ms. Leah Taylor-Roy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you also to Parks Canada for being here and participating. This is a great organization, and I think the supplemental requests are not out of line. But I did have a couple of questions. One about the reports in the 2020-2021 Departmental Results Report. It had initially aimed to have at least 23.7 million people experience Parks Canada during 2021. And of course, we know COVID limited people's travel and resulted in reduced and modified visitor programming. But there were 17 million visitors in 2020-2021. And just curious how Parks Canada balances the goal of welcoming growing numbers of visitors to the parks and preventing or alleviating damage to natural areas due to high numbers of visitors. And then along the same lines, did lower numbers of visitors during the pandemic have any positive impacts on regeneration projects or other Parks Canada initiatives? So did you notice anything? Were you able to do anything due to that temporary period where there was lower visitor numbers at the parks?
It's an excellent question, and I can respond, Mr. Le Président. First, I can confirm just in terms of you're absolutely right, our visitation in the first year of the pandemic in 2020-21 was 17 million. We reached 21.6 million in the last fiscal year. And what's important actually about that number for Parks Canada is that we had very low international visitation, of course. And it meant that our domestic visitation among Canadians actually increased by roughly 20%. And that did mean that a number of Canadians who had never really visited a setting like this before were coming. And we absolutely had to adapt and strengthen our outreach, our communication, our social media work, just to educate Canadians on how to safely and constructively enjoy these settings. We also worked very collaboratively with the news media, and you might have even seen some of the proactive news media coverage on how to be safe and how to ensure not to impact the environment or the cultural integrity of our places. We manage the potential impact of visitation on protected places through a number of means, everything from zoning to fairly elaborate visitor use management strategies. And we are able, at very high levels of visitation, including visitation levels that we experienced in 2017 with free admission, to effectively mitigate the impacts of visitation on ecology. In the first year of the pandemic, it is true that we did not see high levels of visitation, and absolutely we saw some changes in the patterns of wildlife use of our places. But I don't know that I would say that we saw a significant ecological change or benefit, I guess, from the decline in visitation.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. And I'm glad to hear that you have that those visitor use management strategies as well to ensure that the parks are protected, as well as obviously the public education campaigns. A question about electric vehicle charging stations at national parks, as we're moving towards more obviously electric vehicles and trying to promote that and obviously combat some of the fuel cost concerns that were raised. Just wondered how many have been installed and are they well used? And any other accomplishments that Parks Canada has had in kind of sustainability goals as well.
Merci pour la question, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. May I suggest that Andrew Campbell answer it?
Hello, and thank you very much for the question, and thank you for that. To answer the first part of your question, we had a, and we have a partnership that we have put in place with Tesla to put in charging stations and passive charging stations across the country. And at present, we have more than 230 charging stations that are universal charging stations, so you can use them on Tesla and non-Tesla vehicles at 43 different Parks Canada places across the country. So from a visitor using those, we are seeing good visitor use on the charging stations. We continue to work with other partners across the country. So we have done a couple of projects where we had lot space that we have now given those lots in a business relationship to some private charging type of stations, and you can see that in Jasper as a successful. And we are seeing visitors giving us excellent feedback on those on the use of those chargers. At Parks Canada, we're also just on aiming to really do a large greenhouse gas reduction in all of our operations, both in facilities and fleet. By 2030, we are well on the way to being 40% below our 2005 levels, but we will probably make that 40% below by 2025. That's how far
perfect.
on track that we are.
We'll have to go to Madame Posé now, please, for 6 minutes.
Sorry.
That's all right. Madame Posé.
Madame Posé. Yes, thank you. I was just waiting for the end of the interpretation, Chair. Yes, of course, that makes sense. Very well. My question is about the very high sums. We're told that there was a sum of $1.3 million in 2019-20 for infrastructure worth $4.2 million over 8 years, and that is coming to an end. So that funding was to support the infrastructure work across Park Canada sites to ensure that visitor experiences be safe and of high quality by improving historic assets, heritage assets. That's a lot of money. So could you tell me a bit more what was done with the $4.2 billion?
Oui, moi je peux répondre.
Yes, I'm happy to answer. Just give me a moment. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, $4.2 billion. It was a considerable sum. We invested it in 101,000 projects over the last number of years, projects across the country. About 80% of those projects have been completed. So it is true that this programming will come to an end at the end of this year, this fiscal year, and we are working up a long-term plan to pursue our investments in that programming. Important to note, with this funding, we were able to improve the state of our assets. I'm sorry. At the beginning, we had a high percentage of our assets in poor condition. Now, 79% of our assets are in favorable condition. I will just interrupt you, if I may, to ask, yes, all right, you took care of the assets, but I'm wondering whether there were some areas where trees could have been planted. Was that thought of? It's not quite an infrastructure, but in national parks, are there areas that could be focused on for tree planting? Quickly, because we have little time. I would say planting, yes, but also ecological restoration in a number of places. Surely that's true in Fundy Park, for example, as we improved the assets there, in particular the camping sites there. We do undertake a significant amount of land restoration for the areas that visitors visit and also for the park overall. Very well. I will pick up on what Ms. Taylor-Roy was addressing earlier. She was speaking of damage caused by visitors, and you spoke of raising awareness to help save the park areas. I'm thinking of the effects of climate change. 40 years ago, I went to visit Athabasca Glacier, the largest and most visited destination, very popular destination for tourists around the world, that glacier. I remember we would take a bus, especially set out to travel over the ice and the snow. But right now, they're losing over 5 meters a year. That is receding by 5 meters a year because of climate change. I'm giving you that example of that glacier, but I'm sure there are many other examples that you could give us out in Canada's parks. Do you have any examples, any predictions of what's going to be happening? Mr. Chair, may I ask Darlene Upton to answer this? Yes, of course.
Thank you very much for the question. We do a number of different works and studies. Parks Canada is currently developing a carbon atlas series that looks at mapping carbon stores across our places, and that will help us in the management moving forward. We also have a climate adaptation framework, and that's been done in collaboration with other partners. And so with that, we're looking at the data we have in order to predict future impacts of climate. And then we're considering where we need to put ecological corridors, what type of restoration activities we need to use. In fact, in tree planting, for example, what types of species we should be planting considering climate change impacts. We have a national ecological monitoring program with a number of indicators that we can look at to see how climate might be impacting ecological integrity in parks. Of course, it's very complex and sometimes hard to draw direct parallels, but we have a wealth of data that we're working with to try and inform our decision making.
Oui, je vous remercie.
Thank you very much for your response, your answer, because I imagine that there are some set aside to address this issue. I'm not sure whether they are earmarked in the budget, if you have a clear idea of how much to raise awareness and to restore.
Restoration, I can share that we're investing over $10 million a year in ecological restoration projects, and the priority of those projects is informed by the monitoring program. So where we know ecosystems are under particular stress, that is where we kind of prioritize projects. So those could be habitat restorations, they could be focused on species at risk, prescribed burns to restore habitat, etc.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Ms. Collins now for 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and I want to say thank you to the witnesses, both for being here in our committee today, but also for all the work that you do with Parks Canada. And I just really appreciated the questions and comments from my colleagues, especially Madame Posey, when talking about infrastructure. I do think we need to think about our forests as green infrastructure and protect them for the long term. This week, the government introduced Bill C-23, the Historic Places in Canada Act, to replace the Historic Sites and Monuments Act. In 2017, the Environment Committee did a study on protecting Canada's heritage that included a number of recommendations, some of which addressed or are addressed in the new bill, but some other recommendations, notably ones addressing the need for adequate funding to protect Canada's historic places, were not addressed. So the report found that many places of historic significance no longer exist or are in danger of disappearing, often because they have been neglected, and that there's an urgent need to take action to protect and preserve Canada's heritage sites and buildings. So question is just, does Parks Canada currently have adequate funding to ensure the preservation of Canada's existing heritage places?
Monsieur le Président, je vais juste demander...
Mr. Chair, I will ask Christine Lothbaum to respond.
For the question. So with respect to funding for our heritage assets as part of the broader funding allocated to the Organization for Asset Maintenance and Rehabilitation, we focus on our heritage assets. The legislation that you noted will further seek to protect and conserve, puts in place the legal requirement for all federally owned assets to follow the standards and guidelines. And the bill that the Minister tabled earlier this week, C-23, the Historic Places Act, as you noted, will apply to federal historic places, and will also make changes to the board, the Historic Sites and Monuments Board, and add 3 additional members.
And the committee's recommendation from 2017 recommended that the National Cost Sharing Program for Heritage Places be restored to $10 million per year. The current amount available for 2022-2023 is $2 million. What are the implications of the funding gap to Canada's heritage places?
So yes, as you noted, the funding right now is $2 million. Over the past years, we have done $20 million over the past 5 years with 177 projects. So with a $2 million now, we had an oversubscribed program. So for the amount of resources that we get, we could have funded 10 times the amount of projects for what we get currently with the $2 million. And it is a key tool for us to be able to build partnerships with municipal heritage organizations, with federal and provincial and territorial heritage organizations. It is a 50% cost share program. And so with increased resources, we would be able to use that tool to build greater partnerships and have greater examples of protected heritage across Canada.
Thank you so much. The departmental results report shows that Parks Canada's targets for the number of natural and cultural places managed cooperatively with Indigenous peoples hasn't been met. If Bill C-23 is passed, how would it impact how the agency works with Indigenous peoples to cooperatively manage culturally or historically significant places?
So specifically, Bill C-23 responds to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action 79.1, where we would be adding 3 distinctions-based Indigenous members to the Historic Sites and Monuments Board, 1 Inuit, 1 Métis, and 1 First Nation. It would prescribe in legislation that when looking at nationally designated historic people, places, or events, that all Indigenous perspectives are brought to bear, and that Indigenous knowledge is brought into consideration with these historic designations. In addition to that, Parks Canada continues to have cultural practices where we look at opportunities to work with First Nations communities. For example, recently Parks Canada worked with the Poundmaker family and the Poundmaker First Nation to repatriate Poundmaker staff back to the family. So,
thank you. Yeah, and so you mentioned that Bill C-23 would address the piece around representatives for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis on the Monuments Board, Historic Sites Board. But one of the committee report actually recommended a number of pieces to put the government in line with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action 79. Can you give an update, or someone give an update on the progress to achieving the Truth and Reconciliation Commission call to action 79?
I can. So call to action 79, there was 3 components. So of 79, section 1 was the legislative changes that are proposed in Bill C-23. The second component was around working with First Nations to tell stories at our sites and places and to ensure that our cultural heritage is reflected of the stories of all Indigenous history, including difficult histories. And we have been working closely since 2018 with budget resources to be able to support over 30 some projects across the country to have Indigenous voices and perspectives at our sites and places. And the third component is to update our cultural resource management policy that guides how we maintain our cultural resource assets to ensure that Indigenous perspectives are brought throughout that. We are working through that policy framework. We also have established an Indigenous Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee that works closely with Parks Canada on that. And as part of that cultural policy review and the legislation, we held engagement sessions across the country to get the perspectives of First Nations communities on cultural resource management.
Thank you. We have time for one more round. I'll just have to maybe shave a bit off of each question. So we'll do 4, 4, 2.5, 2.5, 4, 4. And we'll start with Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I had a lot to talk about today because I really, first of all, appreciate all the work that you do at Parks Canada. I really enjoyed my time working with you. And I was curious to see if we could get a little update on some of the projects that I was working on way back when. So I did want to ask you about the Rouge National Park, the first urban national park, and how that's coming along and how it's setting the precedent for future urban national parks. The canal system, the infrastructure deficit, how things are going with those and the hours of operation, the Trans-Canada highway upgrades for safe passages and ecological corridors, and of course the workforce at Parks Canada. Just wondering how the seasonal workers and temporary workers are doing and what the effects of COVID. So that's kind of where I was going, and let's see how far we get. So maybe if I could ask you a little bit about the Rouge National Park. I think some of the friendly faces around actually worked pretty hard on that. I remember Alan worked hard. I think, Andrew, you might have worked pretty hard on that one too. I know the goal was to move it towards ecological integrity, and that was one of the stumbling blocks with the province. But I was wondering how the investments are going at the Rouge. I know there was a dump in there, some real estate, some roads, hydro lines, pipelines, highways. I was wondering, how is things going with the Rouge National Park? And do you have the funds to do what you need to do down there?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn that one to Andrew. I think just he'd probably be the best suited to respond and could probably even touch on some of the other items that the member raised.
All right. We got 4 minutes, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go very quick.
Much less than that. Much less than that, Colin.
All right. Sorry. Lots of excellent accomplishments going on at the Rouge. Everything from the Rouge Beach, which had gone under significant erosion this spring, in fact, and we have a project as we speak going on around the restoration of the beach and the Rivermouth area in there, to restoration projects throughout the Rouge National Urban Park. We have been building a trail network that now is going to be linking up to many of the other trail networks. Our work together with the farming community, which Mr. Carey, I'm sure you will remember, was a big piece of our work there. Certainly that continues to improve. We've set one of our first long-term leases for people to do sustainable agriculture within the park, which was one of our goals at the inception of the park, and certainly the growth, and as we are moving towards more and more ecological measures, we are seeing more and more improvement in the ecology within the park, and at the same time, it is becoming one of those places that Torontonians, GTAers, are visiting in high numbers. So great on
Durham
sort of
region.
all the fronts. Durham region. I should have one of our favorite regions in the country. And I will say the other is the other couple of pieces that you had touched on. Certainly the canal and investment in the canal infrastructure continues to go on. We just had another rain event along the Trent Severn, and we have teams out there doing dam inspections and making sure that everything continues to function as we head into the tourism. And then your last question was just on under seasonal employees and students and youth employment. I'm going to say one of the things that we were most proud of is during the pandemic, Parks Canada set a goal of having equity-seeking employees to increase our number, and we had said in our youth that we would.
We're going to have to stop you there, Mr. Campbell.
There we go.
Have to stop you there. I'm sorry, Ms. Thompson.
Yes, that was a good try.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to Parks Canada. I have to start by saying, so going back to the charging stations for electric vehicles, there is a station at Signal Hill, the most easterly point in Canada, and it is universal, so well done. It is coast to coast to coast, or certainly coast to coast. I want to begin with the $35 million provided through Budget 2021. Will it be sufficient to protect Parks Canada assets for future generations?
Take that one. Yeah. Catherine will take that one, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you very much. The $35 million that you see in the supplementary estimates is really just an interim measure to protect our workforce. We are working on our long-term capital plan, so looking at what funding we require in the short and long term, developing options. So right now we're kind of on a path to renewal. So the $35 million is not going to do it, but we're looking at our long-term requirements.
Thank you. So kind of circle back to a question from the previous member. So Parks Canada is requesting $19.4 million for operating expenditures, grants, contributions, and $6 million for capital expenditures for funding to maintain the agency's capacity to manage capital assets. So the measures announced in Budget 2021 with a value of $35 million attributed to 2022-2023 would primarily support Parks Canada's workforce, of which currently 48.8% are women and 7.7% are Indigenous people. So the link being obviously the seasonal employment, youth employment, and the want to have a diverse workforce. So what kind of employment specifically will the fund support, or basically any input in terms of how you're building your workforce and having it reflect Canada?
Sure.
Yeah. Again, thank you very much for the question. As you can imagine, with an asset base of 18,000 assets across the country, the portfolio worth $26 billion, and it's a very complex portfolio in terms of the types of assets we have. As you know, bridges, dams, fortifications, national historic sites, visitor centers. So What the portfolio requires in terms of its workforce is a very highly skilled and sometimes very specialized workforce. So these funds are going to go to retaining our project managers, engineers, architects, archaeologists, finance, procurement professionals. So that's how we're going to be investing the funds, is retaining that kind of diverse workforce. And as was mentioned by Andrew and others, we do prioritize equity-seeking groups in terms of our staffing and our hiring. For women, we're over the workforce availability. For Indigenous, we are at just below the workforce availability, and we have some work to do on the other groups. But it is a priority for Parks Canada in terms of our staffing.
Thank you. And if I could circle back to Learn to Camp, see if I can get this in quickly before my time is up. So, which I think is a fabulous program. I'm only learning about it this evening. Will Parks Canada continue to build on the virtual programming initiated, obviously, during the pandemic and the Learn to Camp program? And as we return to fully in-person programming, like how do you see that initiative expand?
Oh, it's an excellent question. In fact, that is one of the outcomes, and a positive one from the pandemic period, is that we were able to adapt some aspects of Learn to Camp's delivery to the digital format. So we will continue with some digital delivery, but this year's focus will absolutely be on in-person experiences across the country. We anticipate 40 overnight experiences and around 600 half-day and full-day experiences across the country. And we're hoping to hit about 100,000 participants this year, and so far we're on track for that target. But the digital will always be present, and in fact, all of our contingency planning around possible changes in the pandemic circumstances allow us to move back to digital delivery if we have to.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Madame Posey.
Thank you very much, Ms. Posey. 2.5 minutes, Madam. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was again waiting for the end of the interpretation. I will pick up on the questions put by the last colleague. We do read that virtual activities on the site that was set up due to the pandemic, that you do have offered to 75,000 school children in Quebec your Learning to Camp program, primary school students. Can you give us an idea of the results? Give us a real sort of hands-on idea of what the effects of offering this programming are. That's a really good question. Of course, there are skills that can be learned in face-to-face context for camping, other activities, various nature activities, but there are also other skills that you can learn virtually. We've had some very good experiences with our Learning to Camp program with youth, and of course involving school youth as well. We want to introduce nature, culture, history. We work in partnership with many organizations, Canadian Geographic and other organizations as well. Learning to Camp is merely one of our programs that youth across Canada do appreciate. I think it's still too early because this was in 2020 and 2021 to get real data or know the results. You mean for the skills that people have learned or participation data? Both. Oh, of course. The aim of Learn to Camp for young people is really to introduce them to nature. And we really have done well on that score. This year, we wish to improve the experience in order to ensure that we do teach youth specific skills. Youth participation has been very good and has remained high. The public we're targeting is youth and families. What we often find with Learn to Camp is that young people bring their parents. And we will end here, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Ms. Collins.
Yeah, just continuing on the call to action 79.
I really appreciate the update on some of the actions that have been taken. What do you see as the work still needing to be done on that call to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission?
Mr. Chell, I'll ask Christine Wolfbound to continue on that question.
So we are continuing to do work in cooperation with Indigenous communities, particularly with respect to recognizing the residential school event and moving forward with communities on forms of commemoration for that. So in this most recent budget, we received additional funding to continue that important work. So we received funding in 2018 and additional funding in this last budget to continue that work. So we have, under the National Historic Sites and Monuments Board, we have designated the residential school event for residential schools to date, and we are working currently with a number of different communities to commemorate other residential schools, as well as to work with community members and survivors on the forms of commemoration that they would like to see to acknowledge the events.
Thank you so much. And on a different topic, just, the Parks Canada overall voted expenditures have been declining in recent years. And infrastructure funding, approximately $4.2 billion over 8 years, comes to an end. I'm particularly curious about, sorry, just one moment. I'm particularly curious about accessibility needs and how the infrastructure funding is currently being used to increase accessibility, and if any of these funding gaps or declining funding will have an impact on us ensuring that our parks are accessible.
20 seconds, please.
I'll answer quickly, and if there are further questions, Andrew might chime in as well. But absolutely, accessibility is a priority in all of our improvements and restorations of infrastructure across the country. And our long-term planning, in fact, Catherine had mentioned that we are presently working on long-term strategies for the management and reinvestment in our asset base. Accessibility is absolutely a priority in that work as well.
Thank you. We go back to Mr. Carey for 4 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe I can continue with Andrew. Just, I liked your answers, and I was curious about the Rouge again. The goal to reach ecological integrity. I was just wondering, do you have enough funds to reach that goal, or what do you think?
Yeah, thanks for the question again, and certainly as we are moving along on the Rouge, we are seeing lots of actions and activities that we can do, and looking at some of the restoration funding, and of course through restoration funding, and Darlene may want to jump in and talk about that, but through a lot of the restoration funding, certainly there are projects that we are undertaking in the Rouge, and as we look towards the measures of ecological integrity and what came out of the first management plan and the work towards the goals that are established in there, we will continue to make, I think, significant strides towards improvement in the ecology. And I think at the same time respecting the three areas that we had always looked at, which was the culture of the area, the ecological integrity, and again the farming and sustainable farming community in the area as well. So,
well, I think we'll
see all of that move forward.
Yeah, I think it's great. The first one is always the hardest, but if we can get a few more of these, get Canadians involved, and maybe if I could dig in a little deeper on the canal system. Again, great opportunity, I think, for tourism. I was wondering, how do you feel the hours of operation are going to be this year as the tourists come back? Is there proper funds for that? And is there a number you could give me on the infrastructure deficit for the canals? What else do we need to do to bring them up to where they need to be?
Yeah, and so from a canal standpoint, as we had talked about on several responses, it is part of our long-term asset sustainability approach that we are undertaking as we move forward right now. So getting that strategy, moving it forward, and certainly that will be a big part of what we we are looking at from asset sustainability is the canals. They do make up a large percentage of Parks Canada's infrastructure and our infrastructure value. From hours of operation, we seem to be meeting the demand. We aren't having a lot of questions around that at this point, and so it does appear that from the boating public and those that are traversing both the Trent Severn and the Rideau, Lachine, Chambly, all of the canal systems that we are in fact responsible for, we are seeing that people are getting the offer that certainly that they are looking for.
Excellent. And I was wondering if you could touch quickly on the Trans-Canada Highway, the upgrades. I know there was concern and there was a big priority for me, these car-animal interactions. And I got to see some of the ecological corridors, the tunnels, the bridges that you guys put together. I was wondering, and we do need more. Have you been able to complete some of these ecological corridors around the Trans-Canada Highway the last few years? How are those projects coming along?
20 seconds, please.
Michael, did you want me just to continue?
I would
on
just keep
that?
going, Andrew, absolutely.
Okay, there you go. So from a twinning of the Trans-Canada Highway, certainly as we are doing the twinning work, as you had mentioned, Mr. Carey, we are looking at doing animal underpasses, overpasses, to continue to have those corridors of biodiversity and ecology, and that work continues. We are part of Canada's transportation network and continue to work on making sure that areas through national parks are part of that system.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Duguid, last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the Parks Canada officials for being with us tonight, and of course for the great work they do, week in, month out, and something that Canadians are very proud of, our national park system. A lot of excitement around urban national parks, with Rouge being the first, of course. I'm just wondering where we are in the process of meeting that target of 10 new urban parks over 5 years. Are we on track? I'm particularly interested in Winnipeg and where we are in the process there. And as you know, as a result of, I think today's vote, C-248 is coming our way. And I wonder if you would have a short comment on the consultations on the urban park proposed for Windsor. My understanding is that consultations have been going on for 2 years. This is not a new thing that just came about today. And maybe comment on the importance of carrying on those consultations in the right way, so that we all get the result that we want.
Thank you very much for the question. I'll take that one. So as you are aware, we did receive funding in Budget 2021 for up to 6 new national parks, and there's a commitment for more to come. We have 7 projects underway right now, basically coast to coast. And in several of those places, we have established partner committees that are now actively working on studying the potential of a national urban park and their location. A couple new sort of things that I will highlight. So one is the memorandum of understanding that was signed between Minister of the Environment and Minister of Transport for the transfer of Ojibwe Shores lands and the eventual transfer of those lands, which will be a very important part of the Windsor National Urban Park once it's established. So that was a significant step forward for us. As well, we've had a series of engagement sessions now that have focused in 2 main areas. So one series has been focused on the contribution of urban parks to biodiversity and climate resilience, and another series focused on looking at accessibility, equity, diversity, and inclusion in national urban parks. So in terms of where we're at in our process, we are engaging all the multi-jurisdictional partners, and that involves consultation and discussion. And it is our process to take the time required with our Indigenous partners, other jurisdictional partners, to ensure that the vision for the National Urban Parks is strong, and we can get as many benefits out of these out of the creation of these places as possible.
That's great. Thank you very much. So consultations continue. Just maybe a very quick question. Do we have a global figure for the infrastructure deficit for Parks Canada infrastructure coast to coast to coast? And I wonder in your next year's estimates and your requests for a budget, are you planning for climate impacts, and will you be participating in the process to develop a national adaptation strategy, which, as you know, is a commitment by the government? It would seem to me that we need to start preparing for the future because those climate impacts are upon us.
We have 15 seconds to answer those two questions as succinctly as possible, please.
If I could just take I will say we are working with partners in regards to the National Adaptation Strategy. Parks Canada signed a joint statement, international joint statement that was presented at COP26 that acknowledged protected areas as a nature-based solution to climate. We've done analysis within Parks Canada, and we know that the lands that we administer are worth about $300 billion a year in ecosystem services. So their protected areas are very important part of the climate adaptation
We're going to have
solution.
to stop there, unfortunately. Thank you to all our witnesses for some very interesting answers around some very interesting issues. I know I learned a lot from the discussion. I'm sure the same goes for other members. We're going to have to break now because we go in camera. Apparently, this is to the members. The link to the in-camera Zoom meeting is in the original Zoom email. So I imagine that's clear enough. And we disconnect now and then reconnect. Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you all back in a couple of minutes. Thanks again to our witnesses. Appreciated having you tonight.
Thank you.
you